Winder, Georgia is a quiet town about an hour outside of Atlanta, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. But on September 4th, 2024, in the span of a few minutes, a 14-year-old boy will turn Apalachee High School into the most grisly crime scene the school has ever witnessed. 9 people wounded, 4 dead, and the town will never be the same again. The headlines say, "Another school shooting, another troubled kid, another tragedy nobody could have seen coming." Every part of that is wrong, because in this case, everybody saw it coming. The FBI saw it, his teachers saw it, strangers on the other side of the world saw it, and his own mother, who picked up the phone and called the school 30 minutes before the first shot was ever fired, saw it. They all saw it, and it happened anyway. The way this story starts is with a simple question. What does a 14-year-old boy want badly enough to kill 4 people for? Money? Money had nothing to do with it. Revenge? He wasn't mad at anyone. No, Colt Gray wanted something else. Something he chased online for over a year. Something he was willing to trade human lives to get. He wanted to be infamous. And the ones who never saw it coming are the people who paid for it. Ricky Aspinwall, 39 years old, math teacher and assistant football coach. To the kids who filed into his classroom every day, he wasn't Mr. Aspinwall. He was Coach A. He was a girl dad, the kind of teacher who stayed on you about your grades because he actually cared if you made it. Cristina Irimie, 53. She came all the way from Romania to teach math in a Georgia high school. She filled her classroom with cheesy jokes and a laugh you could hear down the hall. She had a gift for making a hard subject feel a little less frightening, and a whole community of Romanian immigrants across the state thought of her as one of their own. Mason Schermerhorn was 14. He loved video games, Disney, and Legos. And the people who knew him said he had a gift for making the kids nobody noticed feel seen. And Christian Angulo was also 14. He was funny, kind, always laughing with his friends. The kids who knew him said that he could make almost anyone smile. Remember these 4 names, because the boy who killed them was hoping you'd remember his instead. Now, to understand how nobody stopped this, you have to rewind. Not to that morning, not to that week. You have to rewind all the way to a year and a half. In May of 2023, the FBI received a tip. Somewhere on Discord, the platform where millions of teenagers hang out and chat, a user was threatening to shoot up a school. And the username he's using references the Sandy Hook shooter, the man who murdered 20 first graders. The tip doesn't come from a nosy neighbor. It comes from different places across the globe. Strangers in Australia reported it, as well as a user in California who stumbled across this kid's posts and got scared enough to call the FBI. Agents traced the account to an email address, and the email belongs to a 13-year-old boy in Georgia named Colt Gray. Deputies drive to the house. They're met at the door by his father. Naturally, he wants to know what's going on and why they want to question his son. He assures them that his son is a good kid, and there must be some sort of mistake, that his son would never do such a thing. Then they question the boy. Colt denies everything. He said the account wasn't his, or it was an old one that he had deleted. Dad backs him up and he assures the officers that his son doesn't even have access to guns. And that's it. No hard proof, no probable cause, no arrest, case closed. The deputies flag the schools to keep an eye on him, and they drive away. The boy was already on law enforcement's radar. A 13-year-old using a mass murderer's name, investigated by the FBI for threatening to shoot up a school. And the system's response was to file it and move on. And what happens next is the crux of this whole case. That December, just 7 months after the FBI showed up at his door, Colt Gray's father buys him a rifle, an AR-15, as a Christmas present. Yep, you heard that right. A Christmas present. So what kind of house does this happen in? By the testimony that came later, a broken one. One with many problems. A marriage falling apart. A boy with serious mental health problems. His own mother would testify that Colt was aggressive, unpredictable, clearly unwell, and that his father didn't want to deal with any of it. So instead of getting him help, they thought a better idea, knowing that he was investigated for threatening to shoot up a school by the FBI, was to get him a semi-automatic rifle, wrap it up, and put it under the Christmas tree. But the gun is only half the story, because the other half is happening on a screen. Online, young Colt had found his people, a dark little corner of the internet where young men collect mass shooters like trading cards. They study them. They rank them. They treat the worst human beings of the last 30 years like rock stars. And Colt doesn't just lurk there. He moves in. He idolizes the Columbine killers. He fixates on the Sandy Hook shooter. And above all, he obsesses over the man who murdered 17 people at a school in Parkland, Florida. In his bedroom, investigators later find what they can only describe as a shrine to the Parkland shooter. In his messages, he writes about his quote-unquote love for him. And he says the quiet part out loud. I want to make history, he writes, to put it short. And there it is. Not money, not payback. History. A 14-year-old kid who has decided that the fastest way to become somebody is to pick up a rifle and turn himself into a name the whole country will say out loud. And the morning of September 4th was the last chance anyone had to stop him. That morning, he was practically telegraphing his intentions. In first period, he asked his teacher about the school's active shooter drills. Another teacher notices him talking about school shootings and gets nervous enough to email a counselor. And then he sends a text to his father. 2 words. I'm sorry. His father sees it and forwards it to his mother, Marcy. And Marcy knows. Instantly, around 9:50 that morning, she calls Apalachee High School. She gets the counselor on the line and she does not sugarcoat it. She says it's an extreme emergency and she tells him to go find her son right now. She tells them that he has access to guns. A frantic mother begging the school to find her boy before it's too late. Sadly, the clock had run out. Somewhere between that call and anyone acting on it, Colt Gray leaves his classroom, comes back with that rifle, and he finds that his classroom door had been locked behind him. So he turns to the room next door and opens fire. 4 lives gone in minutes. 9 more people wounded. Cristina Irimie dies shielding her students from the mayhem. Christian Angulo dies trying to pull a door shut to protect the other kids. The new panic button alert system the county had just installed goes off at 10:22 a.m. Deputies and school resource officers are inside the building within minutes. By 10:28, they've cornered him. Colt Gray gets exactly what he wanted. He doesn't go down shooting. He surrenders. He drops the gun and gives up. Because unlike the killers he worshipped, the ones who ended it by turning the gun on themselves, he never planned to die. He planned to survive. He wanted a front row seat to what came next. From a jail cell, days after murdering 4 people, Colt Gray isn't drowning in guilt. He's checking his stats. Prosecutors played his recorded jail calls in open court. In one, he tells his own mother, "Can you believe it, Mom? I took over Thomas Crooks in popularity. Take that." He's bragging, comparing his notoriety to a kid who tried to assassinate a presidential candidate just weeks earlier. In another call, he says he's quote unquote in the big leagues. He asks his mother to look him up online and tell him what people are saying. He even asks her to bring him fan art of himself. But this isn't finished, not by a long shot. Because in this case, the law did something it almost never does. It went after the man who handed him the gun. Colin Gray, the father, was arrested and charged, not with a slap on the wrist, with murder. Georgia's argument was simple. When you give a rifle to a mentally unstable kid who has already been investigated by the FBI for school shooting threats, as a parent, you own what he does with it. It was one of the first times in American history a parent stood trial for murder over their child's school shooting. And in March of 2026, a jury took less than 2 hours to bring back a verdict. Guilty on all 27 counts, including second-degree murder. A landmark verdict and a warning shot to every parent in the country. The red flags weren't just visible to the FBI and the strangers online. They were visible to the man in the same house, and he bought the gun anyway. That left Colt with one last play. With the evidence stacked to the ceiling, the defense tried to sell him as insane. A mind too broken to know right from wrong. They put a forensic psychologist on the stand to talk about his chaotic home and personality disorder. But when the cross-examination came, the defense's expert shone a light on the whole scheme. Colt had faked it, exaggerated his symptoms, made things up to manufacture a diagnosis he didn't have. He didn't have schizophrenia. There were no hallucinations, no insanity. He knew exactly what he was doing. He'd written the plan in a notebook, step by step. He'd made sure to survive it, and from jail, he was tracking his own fame like a box score. The kid who wanted to be seen as a monster beyond his own control turned out to be nothing but a puny punk with a gun. A punk who knew precisely what he was doing and did it on purpose, for attention. And in late July of 2026, Colt Gray stood in a courtroom and pleaded guilty, not to some of it, to all of it, all 55 charges. And one by one, the families of the people he killed stood up and spoke about Coach A and his daughters, about the teacher who died protecting her students, about 2 14-year-old boys who should be safe and playing video games right now. And then on July 28th, 2026, the judge closed the book. Because the boy was only 14 when he did this, Georgia law took the death penalty off the table. So the judge reached for the harshest thing he had left. He looked at the planning, the shrine, the jail calls, the total absence of remorse, and he called it what it was: permanent incorrigibility. A person who cannot be fixed. The judge sentenced him to life in prison, no parole, for every one of the 4 people he murdered. He will never experience freedom. He'll grow old behind those walls. And the fame he traded 4 lives for, it fades. It always fades. Until he becomes nothing. The one thing he's terrified of being. Forgotten. That's the ending he earned. Not infamy. Not a spot in that twisted hall of fame he worshipped. Just a locked door and a long, quiet life of going nowhere. Everybody saw it coming. The strangers overseas saw it. The FBI saw it. The teacher saw it. His mother saw it. And the only people who never saw it coming are the ones who paid for it. Ricky Aspinwall, Cristina Irimie, Mason Schermerhorn, Christian Angulo. Forget this punk's name. Say theirs.